Hi everybody, it's Anne. Welcome back to Art on the Creek. You're with me in my home studio today and I'm so happy you're here. Hey, have you ever wondered if you only had $5 to spend and you wanted to buy a watercolor set? Which one would you buy? Now, I'm not talking about professional watercolor sets. I'm talking about student grade watercolors. Well, I have two very common sets that are probably available in your area or something very much like it. And I thought that we could compare these two in today and tomorrow's video to see what we're getting into. We're going to compare the dollar store set with the Crayola set. Are you ready? Let's go see what $5 can do. Full disclosure, this is what I got at the dollar store, so I did spend a little bit more than $5. I found this washi tape because if you've been watching my channel, you'll know that I always say I have too much washi tape, so sure, I'll buy some more. Anyway, that was $1.25, so I'm excited to try that out and see if it's got some good adhesion to it. I found these colored pencils because, you know, I often like to use colored pencils with my watercolor, so we'll see how they work. It's $3 for a set of 36. And then these art brushes here, they're all golden Taklon. They look golden Taklon, but they've got some interesting brushes in there. That one on the right is a dagger style brush, an angle brush, and they had a good selection, so I thought I'd try those. Here are the watercolors we're going to check out. They look very appealing. They're bright, they're colorful, they've got a cute package. But this watercolor paper, I am so curious about this. You get 24 sheets, and this is just $3 for this whole pack. It's very, very thick. It is heavier than your average watercolor paper. So I thought that we could test this out today. Oh, I also got this plate. I got a ceramic plate for $1 because white ceramic plates are really great for using for palettes. So let me open this up and let's see what we can figure out. All right, there we go. We've wrestled it out of its confines and ta-da, here we go. You know what this reminds me of? My daughter's first eyeshadow kit. Oh, the lid came right off. Okay, well, I'm not expecting the packaging to be great. It would be fun if you could use that for a mixing palette, but it's clear and that's kind of difficult to do. So these little brushes that they put in here, the filament on it looks plastic. I mean, it almost looks like those fiber optic sculptures that were so popular from Spencer Gifts. I don't know if you guys remember that store, but it's really thick filament. I don't think I'll ever use these. I might... I really don't know what you would use these for. And besides, it's almost miniature sized. And I have 3 of those. So I'm just going to set these aside. I'm not even going to try and use these brushes. So here you can see they're different lengths, but they all have the same dimension of the filament. I guess you could play, you know, draw straws with them, and the longest straw has to do the dishes. I don't know. Those are just going to be used for glue or something. I don't know. But these looked kind of interesting. Let me get these open and let's check these guys out. First of all, I should mention I'm not sponsored by anyone, as you probably already know. I always say that in my descriptions, but Dollar Store is not paying me to do this. And I'm also not going into this with any illusions of grandeur, right? Like, I mean, I know that these are just going to be pretty much throwaway brushes, but if it was all you could afford, I wanted to see what was out there. And for $3, let's see how these perform. You got that number 4 angle brush there, and there's several flats. There's a few rounds in here that look halfway decent, and then there's one that's kind of strange. It's like it looks like Beaker from the Muppet Show. Do you guys remember the Muppet Show? That was Beaker and Bunsen Honeydew. Oh my gosh. Anyway, let's talk about these brushes again. They look good enough to use, so let's go in with them with the expectation that they'll work just fine. And I've sprayed these paints. I will tell you that they were weird. They were like little cakes of hard chalk with gelatin in them of some sort. The gelatin feel was only when you were painting with them on the paper. You can see how the pigment is a lot of the colors are very similar, and the pigment itself doesn't distribute well on the paper. That could be the brush, it could be the paper, but I'm going to say pretty confidently that it's the pigment. These colors are just not vibrant. They're not spectacular. In fact, I had to go over it twice to get any kind of color display from them. I think if you were introducing your child to watercolor, I think they would be very upset with the medium and they would not have a good time. Do you see how the water is just kind of sitting on top and it's not making any real liquid paint? What it does when I sprayed these with water is I had to spray it several times during this swatching because the water would just absorb into that little cake of watercolor, and you can see how streaky and chalky these are, and they just don't act like paint. So let me take a clean paper towel here and I'll rub on this tealish green. It is coming off, but it's not showing up in the blue towel. So let me try the black and I'll show you how chalky and powdery these are. Can you see it comes up on the towel? They're just very difficult to work with. They take a long time just to get any payout from them. But, I'm still willing to try. We're still going to try it. So I have a collection of turquoise that I just absolutely love. And one of the items that I have is this silly little rock. It'll show up here in just one second. There you go. I got this when I was a very little girl in mountain towns or any kind of tourist town. They typically would have in one of the gift shops saltwater taffy and a big bin of polished rocks. And they would always have a little velvet bag with a drawstring, and you could fill that with whatever polished rocks you wanted. Gold nuggets, fool's gold, mica, turquoise, agate, amethyst, all of them, garnet, all of these crystals and gemstones that were there. You could fill your little bag and pay the one price for filling the bag. So this is a little turquoise that I've always just kept in my desk. I've had it from since when I was very little, and I love the colors in it. So I kind of thought, since there were so many colors in this set, let's go ahead and try and see if we can paint. Now I'm going to use one of these round brushes here. Let's see. I think the one that I've grabbed is the round number 11. Let's see what kind of point we can get out of it. Well, maybe I should do that twice. It's just not forming a point really well. I mean, it's there, but it's exactly what I expected. Actually, to be honest, the other two rounds have a pretty good point, so I was kind of pleased with that. Let me try and get some of this pigment going. You can see it just takes a lot of agitation just to get any pigment there. And it's going on. I mean, it's painting, but it's not a pleasant experience. Like I said, it feels like you're smearing around chalk that has been mixed up with water and some kind of very strange binder, like I said before, like gelatin. And I don't think it's the sizing on the watercolor paper. I think that the watercolor paper, frankly, feels like it's not sized at all. I didn't try any real wet on wet techniques. I just kind of filled in this rock. But it was really fun to paint. And I've got the picture there. I'll put the picture in the description because, no matter what paints you have, painting this rock is actually kind of fun. So I thought we could give this a shot and see where it led us. Now let's go into one of these yellow ochreish colors. They're all very similar, really. There's not a lot of difference between these pigments. It's just pretty to look at, and I like the little dots. It reminds me of, an elf when he pushes all the buttons on the elevator. This display of watercolors reminds me of that light up series of buttons for the elevator. So I'm just picking up the rock and looking at it, trying to get all of the little shades and nuances in there. That's something that I'll mention as an aside. If you're working on a real life, a still life, being able to pick up that item and look at it, or look at it from a different angle, can be very helpful. It can be much better than looking at a photo, because then you can really get those subtle nuances and look very, very close. So you can see periodically back and forth, I'm drawing as I go on, and I've got the little vein of that yellow ochre or gold running through there. And now I'm putting in the little black lines. They're just some kind of fissures in the rock. I have no idea. I'm not a real gemstone person. I don't really know anything about this rock other than I remember the sound it made when it went into the little velvet bag. And then I don't know what happened to the rest of those little gemstones now that I think of it. We used to play with pyrite, with fool's gold. I think it's pyrite. That jumped back in my memory, so it must be right. I don't know. Anyway, we used to play with that. We would pretend we were cowboys and Indians, and we would hide that in the yard somewhere. In fact, it's probably still in the backyard of that house we grew up in, but whoever found it could be the first prospector and the first one to stake their claim. So we played Wild West when we were kids. Anyway, here we are using the plate. I thought, okay, well, maybe I'll mix some colors. Let's see how they mix. So I'm mixing a blue and a brown here. I'm trying to get a gray. They mix. The pigment payout, like I said, is nothing like you would expect from the traditional artist level watercolors that I use, the professional watercolors. But I'm not expecting it to be like that. I did expect it, though, to be a little more pleasant to use. Everything I did was just difficult. It just wasn't happy. But bottom line, the painting was kind of fun to do. I mean, that's the thing. See, I love to paint. So, I mean, you could give me whatever and I would paint with it and I would have a good time. But the real reason I wanted to do this is if you're on a very tight budget, and a lot of us are really not having a good time with the economy the way it is now. But I think creativity is so important, and it's such an essential part of life to be able to let your brain, your mind, your mood, let everything relax. And art is such a wonderful way to do that, especially for kids, because a lot of times they have really big feelings and they can't express those big feelings. But if you give them a set of paints, some brushes, and some paper, they can just create whatever they want to create and get their mind off whatever it is that's bothering them that they don't have the vocabulary to put into words. And I think that's very true for us as adults, and also very true for the senior citizen community that may be losing their ability to express their wants and needs. I know Alzheimer's is a disease that a lot of us have someone near and dear to us that's going through Alzheimer's, and I think art is something that is just a gift. And as long as we keep art active in our lives and in the lives of those we love, it can keep us all just a little bit happier, especially after COVID. It was so weird to be locked up for so long. I know a lot of people didn't see their own mother for over 2 years. I can't even imagine that, not seeing your family for that long. We were very fortunate to be able to see ours, but I know a lot of people just couldn't do it. And we're just kind of in a weird place in the world right now. So art is very important. And not a lot of people can afford to really dive into it with 2 feet. So let's continue this. We'll dry it off. And I think we're going to get out these colored pencils. It's not looking bad, right? I mean, the paint is goopy. It doesn't spread right, but it kind of gave the rock some interesting texture. So this white barely shows up. It's on there. I'm kind of trying to put some highlights in. But really, it's just making kind of a foggy mess. I actually felt like it was removing the paint and kind of pushing the paint around. I didn't test this white pencil on a black paper afterwards to see if it was still pure white, but it really felt weird. It felt very gritty, very strange. But there's pigment going down, so the jury's not completely out on these pencils. I was pleasantly surprised with these blue ones. I'll just add a little bit of shading here in that cleft in the rock, and we'll trace around this one to make it darker. And I don't know if you can pick it up on camera, but when I was working with it, it was really very apparent that this really brought out some rich, beautiful pigment. I have no idea how well these layer, but for $3 for a set of 36 pencils, I was pretty impressed. And, no qualms. Again, I have no visions of grandeur, no qualms in using them, because I have no visions of grandeur that they're going to be light fast or anything like that. I mean, these are just easy grab, very affordable pencils. But they were pleasant to use, except for the white. The white was a little frustrating, but all the rest of these, and I didn't use too many, I just used 2 blues, a black, and a white. I had a good time. I really liked using the pencils, and I thought that they added just the right touches to this little piece of turquoise here. And the one thing that I was disappointed with in this, when it was all said and done, was that I was unable to capture the smooth quality of the turquoise. There was so much texture in that paint going down, and so much texture in the paper. It's pretty textured paper, that it was just kind of difficult to make that happen the way I wanted it to. But you know what? It's all right. We're just going to keep going. And at this point, if this really were all I could afford and this is what I had, I would stick with it and I would still use it because that's who I am. But I would say that if you have a choice and you have other options available, in fact, the one that we're going to test tomorrow costs less than this one. And I have a feeling that it might perform just a little bit better. but I don't know for sure. We're going to test it and find out. And I want to use this paper some more because frankly, for wood pulp paper, it's not horrible. I'm kind of intrigued. The one problem I had with the paper is that it's very difficult to remove from the pad. I would definitely recommend using a palette or a blunt knife to kind of help you release that the gum that on the very top where it's attached to the glue, because when I tore this out of the book, it really bent and left a lot of subtle creases in the corner of my my paintings. So that was kind of a surprise. But for the amount of paper that you get and the way that it performed, I was impressed. So now let's go over this whole thing. And oh yeah, we have a lot of lifting. So that's colored pencil and paint. And you can see right there, it just kind of left a big smudge. So, you know, for a dollar store product, I have to say the pencils performed exactly like I expected. The paper performed better than I expected. And sadly, the paints performed less than I expected. The brushes, I had no problem with the brushes. I thought they were okay. I didn't get to use Beaker. I don't know what I would use him for because it's weird. It's like a round, but it's completely flat on the top. It's just a brush I'm not familiar with. But here you go. Here are the dollar store supplies, and technically we have a Dollar Tree. I know that there's a lot of dollar stores under different names, but here's our turquoise stone. So if you're looking for dollar store paint supplies, I would say keep walking. You can go ahead and get the paper, you can get the pencils, but let's leave those dollar store paints where they are. See you tomorrow when we compare with the Crayola. Take care, guys. Bye.